It have already been registered and documented between August and September by the National Commission for Refugees CNCR with the technical support of the UNHCR. Behind these numbers, there are families, children, entire lives in search of hope. This meeting made it possible to take stock of the situation, to present the actions already undertaken, and to identify needs and shortcomings in order to strengthen the collective effectiveness of the humanitarian response. It was also an opportunity to present the new digital platform, Hope in Bambara, also known as Juguya. Developed by UNHCR, this collaborative tool is expected to facilitate coordination between all stakeholders and provide a centralized database to improve the availability and sharing of information on the humanitarian response in Mali.
Sankole Janko with that report. Still in the Sahel, Niger's transitional president, General Abdurrahman Chiani, concludes a 24-hour official visit to Bamako this Tuesday, a visit aimed at reinforcing regional cooperation. Upon his arrival earlier today, General Chiani was welcomed by Mali's transitional leader and president of the Confederation of Sahel States, General Assimi Goïta. This visit comes just 3 months ahead of the second ordinary summit of heads of state of the Alliance of Sahel States and marks a strategic step forward, deepening bilateral ties between Niamey and Bamako. It also underscores a shared commitment to consolidating Sahelan sovereignty and regional stability. The AES was established on September 16, 2023 by Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso through the signing of the Letamco-Gorman Charter. Since its creation, the alliance has embarked on ambitious institutional development despite ongoing security and economic challenges. On the security front, all three member states continue to confront persistent jihadist threats, which remain a central concern in their respective agenda. Here in Senegal, former President Macky Sall has spoken out regarding allegations of hidden debt during his administration. In a strong response, Sall dismissed the claims as nonsense, saying it is impossible to hide a public debt by its very nature. He explained that every international loan taken by Senegal requires legal scrutiny, approval from the Supreme Court, and is processed through the West African Central Bank, making secrecy virtually impossible. Here's what former President Macky Sall had to say.
I think I had chosen not to talk about Senegalese issues, but I was the first to hear talk of hidden debt because, simply put, it's nonsense. A public debt cannot be hidden by definition because a public debt presupposes a government commitment to buyer. It's a financial agreement that is first authorized, or at least requires the opinion from the Supreme Court for each international debt agreement. First, to determine the compliance between the country's commitment and this agreement. Does this debt agreement correspond to our international commitments, our constitution, etc.? Then, the external debt is paid in foreign currencies. We have a local currency, the CFA franc, like all countries. So, this foreign currency debt, when it comes, whether multilateral or bilateral, it goes through the central bank, which is a central bank of West African states, which brings together 8 countries. It is this bank that receives money from abroad, which converts it and issues local money in CFA francs, which gives to the government of Senegal. So, how can we hide all this without the multilateral surveillance of the monetary fund, which is permanent, without myself, the President of the Republic, ever being informed? Never. Before these accusations.
Former Senegalese President Macky Sall. Meanwhile, Senegal's Minister of Economy, Planning and Cooperation, Abdourahmane Sarr, has issued a formal response to former President Sall following his public denial of any hidden debt during his administration. Minister Sarr emphasized that the International Monetary Fund, IMF, will be tasked with updating its macroeconomic framework for Senegal, a move expected to clarify the current debt position and bring transparency to the ongoing controversy. He claims IMF's executive board is set to review the updated figures in the coming weeks.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In the neighboring Gambia, reactions continue to pour out following recent protests that turned deadly, claiming the life of one young man. Several others, including security officers, were injured during the clash. President Adama Barrow addressed the nation in a somber national broadcast late Monday and extended condolences to the family of Omar Baji, the young protester killed during an encounter with the police, and wished a speedy recovery to all the injured during the recent protests. Abdullahi Hassan has more in this.
President Barrow, in his nation's address, called for dialogue and respect for the rule of law while assuring his government's commitment to democratic values.
As a nation that cherishes democracy and unity, this is a defining moment for us. We must renew our commitment to peaceful engagement and lawful expression. The right to protest peacefully is a cornerstone of our democracy, protected by our constitution and respected by this government. It is essential that all grievances, especially those of our youth, who are the heart and hope of this country, are channeled through constructive, lawful avenues.
The president reaffirmed his government's commitment to peaceful protest and democratic freedoms while making no direct mention of a full investigation into the alleged actions of police officers involved in the incident. That omission has drawn criticism from some civil society organizations, including the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, which had earlier called for an urgent and independent probe. Madi Jobati is executive director of the center.
I am seriously disappointed because, in one sense, the president's speech lacks honesty and the seriousness to respond to the urgent needs of this country. And in another sense, it reflects a sense of ignorance and disconnectedness, that he is not in touch with his reality. I thought the president has learned lessons, but after his speech, what I heard is divisiveness, scapegoating, running away from responsibility, and threats.
However, in a separate development, the Inspector General of Police, Sidi Mukhtar Toure, visited the family of the deceased over the weekend and pledged a full investigation into the matter. As tensions remain high, all eyes are now on the police to ensure a transparent inquiry and on the government to deliver justice without delay.
Abdullahi Hassan fight that report. Let's focus our attention to Liberia now, where the civil law court has issued arrest warrants for some high-profile former government officials in connection with the controversial disappearance of a diamond valued at $2.7 million. The controversy dates back to 2023 when a 53.34 carat diamond was discovered by a group of local miners in Bapolu County, located in the western region of the country. Despite the miners' claim, the Liberian government later declared ownership of the diamond, sparking public outcry and legal challenges. Christopher Atiche reports.
Those named in the ruling include former Minister of Justice and Attorney General, Councillor Frank Musadin, former Minister of Mines and Energy, Gesla Mura, and President of the Diamond Dealers Association, Mustafa Tunkara. Others are Isha Kakone, Emmanuel Titi Swin, Kova Bessa, and appraiser, and several other individuals allegedly involved in the appraisal, certification, and sale of the diamond. The court's action follows a directive from the Supreme Court of Liberia mandating a full investigation into the irregularities surrounding the diamond's seizure and handling. Judge Konto's findings point to a systemic failure of oversight and a pattern of collusion and secrecy, asserting that the diamond's disappearance could not have occurred without the active involvement of senior government officials. The case dates back to 2023, when a group of miners led by Mohammed Karama, also known as Jacket, discovered the diamond while mining at Camp No. 9 Diamond Creek in Bapolu County. Despite their claim of ownership, the Ministry of Justice, under the leadership of Councillor Din, declared the diamond as government property following an internal investigation. To date, no public record or evidence has revealed the current location of the diamond or how its value has benefited any sector of Liberian society.
Christopher, a teacher reporting there, still in Liberia, a coalition of civil society organizations is pressuring the government and ArcelorMittal company to keep the country's equity stake at 30%. They argue that reducing Liberia's stake to 15% will be detrimental to national development and deprive citizens of much-needed benefits from their natural resources. The Civil Society Tax Justice and Budget Platform, a leading voice in the coalition, has labeled the proposed reduction as unacceptable. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
Key organizations within the coalition, including Integrity Watch Liberia, Accountability Lab, and the Center for Advocacy Research and Development, are united in their assertion that Liberia has received minimal returns from the concession despite holding a significant equity share. The one that further diminishing this share would severely impact the country's ability to generate revenue for essential services and infrastructure. Speaking on behalf of the CSO coalition, Catherine Kolibeli emphasized that any new agreement must safeguard Liberia's 30% equity, ensure fair employment practices, and compensation for Liberian workers.
ArcelorMittal has a troubling record of declaring operational losses despite favorable global market. Moreover, the agreement must enforce gender-sensitive hiring policy and guarantee safe and fair working conditions. Citizens have waited far too long for meaningful employment benefit from this concession, and the platform insists this issue be addressed as a matter of priority. It must provide for a reversed relocation and resettlement framework to ensure that farmers and land owners are treated with dignity.
The CSOs are also advocating for fair, transparent, and timely compensation for land usage, addressing long-standing grievances from communities in Nima, Grand Bassa, and Bon counties. These communities have consistently voiced concerns about unfair land use practices, inadequate compensation for displacement, and a lack of meaningful consultation in decision-making processes. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa, Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Over 50,000 Burkinabe refugees seek shelter in central Mali amid escalating armed conflict. Former Senegalese President Sall dismisses hidden debt allegations as baseless. A Liberian court orders arrest of high-profile former officials over mysterious disappearance of 2.7 million diamond. Still ahead in the news, the Nigerian government declares October 1 a public holiday in commemoration of its 65th anniversary. We also have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for being with us. We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. The federal government of Nigeria has announced Wednesday, October 1 as a public holiday to mark the nation's 65th independence anniversary. In a statement from the Ministry of Interior, citizens are encouraged to foster the spirit of patriotism, unity, and resilience that has been a cornerstone of Nigeria since its independence in 1960. President Bola Tinubu also calls on Nigerians to remain steadfast in supporting the Renewed Hope agenda, which focuses on national renewal, economic development, and shared prosperity. Although the traditional military parade has been cancelled this year, a series of events has been planned to commemorate the occasion. Speaking, Mohammed Idris Magalgi, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, unveiled this year's theme and presented an overview of the achievements of President Tinubu's government.
October 1 every year represents a milestone that enjoins us, even as we celebrate, to take stock of our journey in nationhood, to weigh the present and to rally around a renewed hope purpose centered on repositioning our nation for a greater future. As we mark the 65th year since our independence from Great Britain, we are all witnesses to the remarkable reforms taking shape at a pace never seen in the history of this country. Under the renewed hope agenda and its 8 priority areas, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is laying the building blocks for a national renewal anchored on prosperity, peace, and unity. At this point in time, our collective participation in nation building is critical in the sustenance of the progress being made. That is why the theme of this year's 65th anniversary is All Hands on Deck, a direct and heartfelt call to all Nigerians and our friends and partners around the world to show understanding and to commit to supporting these landmark reforms. Our trade surplus continues to grow with an increasing share of contributions from the non-oil sector. Declining inflation, a strengthening currency, falling food prices, growing external reserves, all these are more eloquent testament that we are on the right track as a nation.
Nigeria's Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris Malagi.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, in the wake of recent deadly protests in the Gambia, President Adama Barrow has addressed the nation expressing condolences to the family of Omar Baji, the young man killed during clashes with police, and extending wishes for a swift recovery to those injured, including security personnel. His address Monday evening struck a somber tone, but reaction has been mixed. While the president reiterated his government's commitment to peaceful protest and democratic freedoms, he stopped short of calling for a full investigation into alleged police misconduct or silence, now drawing criticism from civil society groups. Our guest this evening is human rights advocate Mahdi Jobati, who is also executive director of the Edward Francis Small Center for Rights and Justice, as he reacts to the president's message.
Yeah, I think the fundamental challenge the Gambia faces is a governance issue. If we don't have an issue with protesters, which seems to be a problem for him, or youths, or crime, and so on. Our fundamental problem is governance, that is upholding the principles of good governance. That is to make sure his government is upholding the law, performing its functions efficiently according to law, and delivering quality goods and services to Gambians, and essentially doing what they are supposed to do and protecting human rights. Instead, what we are seeing is the abandonment of their legal obligations, in which case what is manifesting is on widespread and unchecked corruption, poor service delivery, mismanagement of public resources, and abuse of power and disregard of the rule of law. And consequently, what that has generated is widespread poverty, deprivation, inequalities, and lack of opportunities. Hundreds of Gambian youths have perished in the Atlantic Ocean, in the Mediterranean, in Libya, in the Sahara Desert, because they've lost hope in their country. They cannot get opportunities, and they want to go to seek greener pastures elsewhere. So that is the fundamental problem the president should have addressed, to recognize that his government is inefficient, is corrupt, is driven by selfish interest, self-enrichment, and the failure to address that, you are going to see, very severe social and economic conditions in the country, and that can generate all sorts of things: crime, protest, and so on. And to ignore that and to present a picture as if young people are violent, or protest is violence, or there are some people who are stoking other people to, incite them to engage in violence to destabilize the country, it means he's far away from the reality. that he doesn't even understand how he's even running his own government, and much more the state of affairs in the country.
Of recent, we've seen more and more protests, young people out on the streets demanding a fix to the problems. A couple of times we've seen that a number of them have been arrested, and there is even accusations or allegations of police brutality, which of course happened just last weekend, where Omar Baji reportedly died due to police brutality. And I wonder, sir, what do you think can be done by the state to put an end to the use of excessive force by the police in circumstances or situations like this?
Well, I don't think this government can do anything about that because they have, demonstrated glaringly their inability to uphold the law, to abide by democratic principles, to embrace good governance. And so, because that's the only solution to this, embrace good governance, abide by democratic principles, abide by the rule of law and human rights. But clearly they are not interested in that because this government is overwhelmed, and prioritizes corruption instead.
And what is at stake for the Gambia should this sort of violence or face-off between police and young people continue just at least, say, a year plus before the elections in 2026?
Well, I think we will see more governments protesting as we move towards 2026, regardless of whether the election is 2026 or any time, because what these young people and other governments are responding to is the corruption. Yes, it's the poor service delivery, and I don't see how that is going to improve, from now till 2026. So what I can say is we are going to see more protests. We are talking about Mandinari this week. Last week, that was in another community where there was, again, police brutality. It was just that nobody was killed in that incident, but it was also very severe.
Mahdi Jobate is a human rights advocate from the Gambia. Up next, the latest news in the world of sports, and Christopher Atichud is just right here in studio with the details. Hello, Chris.
Augustine Colley, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm very well. And how is Liberia football too?
We're doing well, thank you.
Well. Right, so Augustine, in sports this evening, Ghana's Black Starlets will be taking on the Golden Eaglets of Nigeria in the semi-finals of the ongoing WAFU Zone B Under-17 Cup of Nations happening in Cote d'Ivoire at 8 p.m. this evening. Now, ahead of the game, Ghana's midfielder Mark Kagawa-Mensah says the players are well aware of the task ahead of them when they come up against Nigeria. Now, the two teams tonight are playing for a spot in the next edition of the Under-17 African Cup of Nations to be staged in Morocco. Now, remember that the Black Starlets have not been at the Continental Showpiece since 2017, and so they are very eager to qualify this time around. And the last time that they came was in 2017, where they reached the quarter-finals of the competition. And yesterday, remember that I brought you a story where South Africa's World Cup hopes for the 2026 has actually hit a block at the moment, because FIFA has actually taken 3 points away from the Bafana for fielding Tobacco Mokoena, who was suspended in their match qualifiers against Lesotho. Okay. Well, there's a latest update because the South African Football Association has reacted, saying that it is appealing the decision, calling it unprecedented and claiming they weren't given a chance to respond before the ruling. Now, the point deduction drops South Africa to second in Group C, now trailing behind Benin on goal difference. And the sports minister of South Africa says the situation is embarrassing and therefore the nation must take full responsibility. Yeah. But of course, there are more sports or football actions this evening, as at the moment there are some 2 games going on where Real Madrid is taking on Kairat, and latest person or scoreline indicates that Madrid is in a comfortable lead, 4-0 at the moment. Game is in its 84th minute as we speak, and then Atlanta has been able to pull one back to draw with Club Brugge, so scoreline is now 1-1. Game is in its 85th minute as well. Later at 7 p.m. this evening, which is in some few hours, there are some actions to be going on where French side Marseille would also be taken on Netherlands side Ajax. That game will be at 7 p.m. tonight. And then Inter Milan, Italian side, would also be taking on Slavia Praha as well. And then Galatasaray would also be taking on EPL League leaders at the moment, Liverpool as well at 8 p.m. And then Chelsea would also be in action against former coach's side, Jose Mourinho, at 8 p.m., which is Benfica. Chelsea will be taking on Benfica this evening, and I'm just looking forward to see how that game would actually pan out.
Indeed.
That's it for Sports, Augustine.
Thank you, Chris. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for tuning in, and special thanks to Fali Lusso and Ismaila Kamara for the technical support. Connect with us on our social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR English, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Cully. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kaigama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.